strapless dress kills me every time I see it. It makes me want to go to the beach.
Wait, what picture is? I don't even know.
It's just like your profile, your skate profile, and it's that one. It's like a black strapless something, but it's the sun, right? The sun is like intensely on you, and I'm like, oh, she's in the sunshine.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, Joel, you need to put a picture up on yours.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing over there. In fact, I'm probably using the wrong account because I should probably be using like Positive Life Co. I don't know. It was I was telling Amy I set this whole thing up last night. It was sitting here ready to go, and I came out this morning. And then, of course, I think maybe if your computer just sits there, it figures out how to get confused. So
yeah, you can't leave them alone that long.
You can't leave them alone unattended. So here we go. We're going to jump in because I'm a little bit late. I'm already recording, so I'm just going to kind of start in. We're just going to jump in, Erika.
Oh no,
it'll be fun.
Okay, right. I trust you.
So we'll try to wrap up, probably like right about 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock on the button, and but we'll go with the flow. If it's a little bit earlier, that's cool. But I'm sure the three of us can talk for a while, so it's fine. All right, here we go. Positive Life Co. Community Podcast episode here. We are here with Ericka Taylor. Going to get to know a little bit about her and Amy Dix. Going to be a great time. How's everybody doing?
Good. How's the weather where you guys are? We're super bright, sunshine, easy to be positive on a day that looks like this.
True story. True story. I wonder, like, what the science is behind weather and positivity. There's got to be something there.
Oh, hugely correlative, right? Like, think about all the seasonal affective disorder that we get, right, in the wintertime, and
yes,
it's gray, and it's that sunlight, and I mean, from a brain science standpoint, if you don't get a good continuous dose of vitamin D, your body does not work right? You don't get serotonin. It won't make serotonin. It won't make, so it's totally.
I was talking about that today. I remember living in Denver. Yep, it was, you'd see stuff on the news and everybody would just turn and be like, well, it has been cloudy for 2 days. You know? It's funny.
It's true. And especially if you're used to it, because it wasn't like that when I lived in Portland. It would rain for days and days, and I think everybody just has this kind of lower level of positive vibration anyway, and so it doesn't change as much.
That's really interesting. I'll tell you what. So along some of those lines, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you some quick questions, right? Because I'd love for people to get, instead of just kind of rolling into this, I'd love people to get into your psyche a little bit right away, so then when we talk, they can they can play some things, okay? So I'm going to ask 5, 6, 7, maybe 10 questions. They don't have to be rapid fire, but we'll see what happens. So, pretty easy, just off the top. How about a favorite comfort food?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, so that's super easy. I have a green drink. This is going to sound so like ridiculous. You're going to think I'm making it up. But I have a green drink. It's a powder. It goes in water, and it literally like floods my body with these feel good calories, and it works every time.
What do you like? Who is it? What do you like to use? I'm going to write it down here.
I use one that's called Purium, and it's because it's the only one I trust. If you look, a bunch of research just came out about a bunch of bad stuff that's in them, and the first thing I did was look for that. I'm like, please don't be there, and it wasn't. And you read the label, it's all food.
Like, please don't ruin my favorite drink. Please.
Yeah, I know.
I know.
Right.
Okay, so some of these questions, I listen to a bunch of podcasts. A couple I've kind of stole from Tim Ferriss recently. He had asked, what's one of the best purchases you've made under $100 in the last year?
The best purchases I ever made under $100 last year.
Within the last 12 months or something.
Okay, well, I just bought a book that's called Press Reset, and it is by a guy named Tim Anderson, and it is all about how learning to move like a baby learned to move can completely like keep you strong and not frail or fragile as you age. And it's changed my professional life, my personal life, my body. So
Nice.
Interesting. All right, I dig it. Some of these are going to go a little deeper. So maybe some quick advice to your 20-year-old self.
Oh my God, eat better. Please.
I see a theme here. I think Eric's going to help.
I could have told that to myself yesterday.
It's because I just got back from yoga, so my brain is like very, focused on that. Definitely eat better, but also like just I think on a deeper note, trust yourself. Do the things that you're scared of. I know Amy and I have had several conversations about that kind of thing, and about how, in crisis, sometimes it's easier to act. So when you're fat and happy in your 20s and everything is, kind of going your way, it's a lot easier to go, oh, I'm not quite ready, or, whatever it is. So I would say just that ability to take those butterflies and your gut and know that means you're supposed to do whatever the thing you're
paying attention to that little inner voice. I think getting better at that as you get older is like when to listen to that voice when, hey, let's jump off a cliff, which I've done. Not that time, but listen to that voice at some point. I like that. How about a couple quick ones, like maybe your favorite sound?
Oh my gosh, my snowboard. The way my snowboard sounds in the snow.
I can hear that.
I should have said like my children's voices, huh? That's what I meant. We pretended.
That's what I meant to say. Yeah. Back up. Can we edit this?
We can make that
edit
happen.
That out. I'm sure if you asked like Amy's dad, he would have been all diplomatic and said, the sound of my children saying my name or something.
That's beautiful.
Hey, it takes all kinds to make the world go round. We can't all answer the same as Larry Dix does.
Oh gosh, but what if we could? Oh,
I'm not quite sure what this world would be like.
Oh man, this is fun. How about Jenny helped me craft a couple of these the other day. How about favorite way to say thank you?
Oh, domo arigato. Thank you is my favorite word. I really think everyone should learn thank you in at least 10 languages by the time they're 5 years old.
Oh wow.
And what language was that?
That's Japanese. Domo arigato gozaimashite is like if you're saying it to like your teacher, you would say the long version. But like there's restaurants all over that are just called domo, and that means thank you.
Domo. What was the second one that you said? Arigato?
Yep, arigato. It's Arigato. Arigato.
Domo arigato.
Like, do you remember Domo arigato, Mr. Roboto?
Oh, yeah.
You guys all
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Who knew? Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It all comes full circle, right? Just had to wait till today to close that loop, finally. I love it. How about, this can be day to day probably, but favorite way to snap out of a little funk, right? Breathing. Wow, back to the basics, right? Oh man,
we should do it right now.
Let's do it right now.
On the roof of your mouth, deep breath in through your nose. It's like crack.
Interesting.
Well, I mean, I don't know actually what crack is like,
but I would assume.
But I can imagine. And if it is the way I imagine it, that's
what it is.
Yeah, out on the street. He's like, hey man, do you have any crack? He's like, just take a deep breath, all right, buddy? Just take a deep breath and get back to me on that. And that'll be $25 or whatever, what the going rate is for crack these days.
Right? I'm not kidding, Joel. I swear I have people who are regular clients and they trust me 100%. They do whatever I say. And literally all I do is remind them to breathe. That's it. And don't tell them that, though.
Yeah, I need to do that.
Don't tell them to listen to this podcast.
Right. Yeah, right. Here. Okay. This is a good one. Favorite pump-up song. Just got to get jammed. Got to get jacked up. What are we doing? What are we playing?
Oh, my God. You go first.
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know why this just popped into my head, but it's Now That We Found Love by Heavy D. You know this one? Ooh. Now that we found love, what are we gonna do? Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm putting that on my playlist.
That one gets me jacked.
I'm like, seriously, I just opened my phone and I'm going to buy it right now. Amy, what about you? What is yours?
That's a good question. I love Celebrate Good Times.
Oh yeah. Classic.
Yeah. That one is on my playlist because that is like my first exercise song from Jazzercise.
Yeah, I saw that. Oh, I was going to talk about that too.
Yeah, Jazzercise, man. Like that. Yeah, that totally does it. Mine really does change, and it really kind of depends on, again, don't tell my clients I have favorite clients, but you know how when you're really working intensely with somebody, like their vibe kind of colors your world. Mm-hmm. So I had a 12-year-old client last year, and so a bunch of his stuff, like there's a song that's called I think it's called Superhero. Oh, Hall of Fame. It's called Hall of Fame. Like Living in the Hall of Fame. It's like Will.i.am is in it.
Oh, yeah.
You know that song?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that one was it. But Shakira has a song.
Yes.
Yeah, right?
Pretty Shake much. Those hips, girl. Yeah. Shake those hips.
Hey, your hips don't lie. Is from what
they don't. And that one will pump you up. My poor kids. We have a like get up, like go to school kind of dance party playlist that we play in the morning, and oh my gosh, yeah, they go off to school on Shakira a lot of days.
Oh, that's really cool. No, oh wow, man, that's fun. So let's see. I think maybe I had one more. We'll use this. This is interesting. Favorite guilty pleasure. And that could be however you take it. Guilty pleasure.
Okay.
People may go to the food angle.
I'm, like making sure that my husband is not like listening to this. I know it's not like that. And it, you guys will appreciate this because you're sun people. When I travel to someplace sunny, I, without fail, schedule at least a half a day where I can just lie on a rock in the sun. Yeah. Like it doesn't. Okay, now if my kid was like having a baby or graduating from high school, like I would come home in time. But barring anything like that, I stay an extra 12 hours in sunny places when I travel for work.
See, that touches on a couple things for me. For one is, like, that's self-care, and I think that's the most important thing. Number one, right, is you're taking time for yourself. And I was just talking with somebody this the other day. You know, we all have our families and our commitments and our time, and I am guilty of this, or my wife is too, but Jenny is too, but if you just take a minute, take a half a day. I took yesterday off, and it was, everybody's like, well, what are you guys going to do? I was like, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to spend some time with my wife. I'm going to do some things that I need to get off my checklist. I'm going to maybe golf a little bit. Like, I'm going to take my day, and that's really important. I don't think enough people do that. A lot of times we feel guilty when we have some time off or whatever. And I literally did not check my work email one time, which is a really big feat, you know, because I wanted to help my partner out, my business, you know, my counterpart. But so yeah, I really like that a lot.
And I agree. And if I were talking to somebody else, like if Amy came to me and was like, oh man, like I can't make time. I really want to go get a massage, but I just can't make time. What I would say to her is, but you have to, right? Like, and especially when you think you can't, that's like when your body needs you to do it the most. And really you're giving a gift to all those people that depend on you because you can show up for them. You know?
That's so good. I feel like you just inspired me. I was thinking this morning that, you know, I'm only home here for about 24 hours before I go back out on the road again. And I was running some errands this morning, had to run into the office, and I thought I really should go to the beach today. And I was like, I do not have time to go to the beach today. Yeah. And so you have just inspired. I will take a picture, I promise, and I will send it to you. I will go to the beach today.
Nice.
Yeah. That harkens back to that trusting yourself that we were talking about earlier, right? You had that thought and you so quickly like didn't honor it because you were taking in everybody else's messages and yeah.
Well, a little bit of insight into Amy yesterday, if you don't mind, Amy. She had, I know she's only home for a little bit. She's out traveling a lot, and she had sent me a Vox. You know, Vox are this little app where you can send messages back and forth. It's really cool if you haven't checked it out. And she's like, hey, man, I think she said, hey, dude, I'm so tired. I'm not going to be home very long, but I'm out back in my hammock just soaking it up for a little bit. And I know that's her happy place, and I'm a huge hammock fan, so I was just like picturing it. I'm like, I'm so happy she's in her little spot. She probably had little Sadie Mae with her chilling, and I was like, good for you, you know, just try to reset before you get out on the road and, you know, wash your brain a little bit and just, you know, so you're there, so you can be present. You know, outside of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I love the washing your brain image. And Aim, I love that you shared it with somebody because then you've like immediately taken that good that you're doing and instigated it with somebody else. Like then it's in Joel's head. Oh, like he gets to enjoy what you're enjoying, but then it's also like you're the voice in the back of his head. And that's
like that.
Yeah,
we all need to do more of that.
Wow, that's interesting. True. Sharing that out and making sure that, because it's inspiring, and it's like, it makes you think like, yeah, I need to take a break for a minute here, No, I really dig that. So, wow, those were some fun answers. I dig it. And, it's fun to start off that way. And, so Ericka Taylor, what I'm seeing is, and you're in Colorado, right?
Yep.
And I'd like to maybe talk a little bit about this on the call, kind of, where you like grew up and what that situation was like, brothers, sisters, maybe what your parents did, and then how that kind of groomed into where you are now. I mean, I know that's a bigger story, but just a couple of the major milestones that put that in place. And then I'd like to talk a little bit about global wellness design and tailored fitness, and how that plays into you and really how you overcome challenges in your life, and any little tips or tricks you can. Because a lot of times on these calls, when we talk to people, it's really like, what have you overcome, and what like exercises or stuff do you do to remain positive and get through those tough times? Because we're all trying to learn from each other.
And the great thing and the lucky thing for you guys, so that like I won't talk for the rest of the day, is that those things, my past, I think all of ours does, but when I look at what I do now and the way I do it, it is directly because of the people that raised me, the time that I was raised. Like the 70s figure really, really heavily kind of into my cultural iceberg, and what my parents did, including not only the content that I am in love with, which is the taking control of what goes in your body and what you do with your body in order to make sure you get to have that body do those things for you for a really long time. They were both very, the kind of fitness craze, obviously, starting with Jack LaLanne. My grandma.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, my grandma, when I was there, summer vacations and Christmas and stuff, Jack LaLanne was on. So he literally is the soundtrack that kind of informs my day. And, say what you will about sort of, right? I mean, there's a lot of kind of mama's little helper, little yellow pill kind of stuff in what he did in terms of that, because those housewives were at a point in their lives where automation had started happening and their days weren't full from dusk till dawn or dawn till dusk, other way around, with chores and family care and things like that. So there were a lot of women kind of in their house dress, trying to figure out what they should do. So, and go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, so for those that don't know, because Jack LaLanne, and here's the picture I have, and you maybe want to Google him up, but he was this guy that, was kind of, not maybe really ahead of his time, but he would wear these blue or whatever jumpsuits. It was like blue. A one-piece blue jumpsuit, and he was really into fitness. And I feel like it was, it was early before a lot of people were talking maybe about the benefits or maybe what we knew about it. And I think later in his years, I would see him on infomercials in the same blue jumpsuit in his 70s and 80s talking about juicing, right? And he had like a juicer or something.
Yep.
All right.
He did.
So if you don't know Jack LaLanne, look him up. He's really, like a grandfather to this industry.
He is. He really is. He and Joseph Pilates, and obviously they had very different approaches and sort of slightly different time frames, but Jack LaLanne had definitely studied a lot of Pilates stuff, and you're right. That blue jumpsuit was iconic, and I guarantee you, someone in your family had one. For me, it was my dad. My grandpa actually had one too. And they had like.
I just Googled it. This is hilarious. Everyone needs to Google this.
Amy, oh my God, everyone does need to. And then like seriously listen to what he has to say. I especially Amy, this, and partly because of your dad. What he does, I work a lot with elected officials. And I tell you, he has one video, I think it's called Keep America Fit or something like that. And a lot of the stuff that the Kennedy era where they talked about it's your responsibility as American to stay physically fit for the health of the nation. Those words are Jack LaLanne's words. And they worked very closely together to develop the Keep America Fit campaign and all of that kind of stuff. And then Reagan kind of tried to bring it back a little bit. We're sort of off that now, but that's
no. That's good because that just plays into what I had seen. One of your quotes, which I think melds from some of that stuff, is you had said something like that you feel wellness or teaching. I'm going to probably get it wrong, but teaching wellness or coaching wellness, you felt like is your civic duty, or
yeah.
And so
Amy and I have done some work together, kind of around my brand, and she was the one that kind of pinpointed. Well, Erika, you know what you do is you inspire civic leaders to know that and then to spread it, and it kind of stems from my kind of getting back to where that all comes from. My parents were very civically active. My mom, even though she worked full time outside the home from the time I was in third grade, she still baked all our bread. She made homemade yogurt. Like I didn't see a jelly bean until I was 5 years old.
No Peeps.
No, dude, no Peeps. And now, like, I totally fail my children. My house is full of Peeps right now. And apparently, if you didn't know this, they make Peeps in like Oreo flavor. I can't even think about it. I literally.
Good for them.
I don't even. Are Peeps like the yellow?
Yeah.
Oh, Amy. Except now they're every color and.
They look gross to me. I don't think I've ever had.
See, we're so lucky. We're so lucky.
Yeah.
Because that is not true for everyone.
It's like the only thing that would survive the Holocaust, or not the Holocaust, but the apocalypse or whatever, besides cockroaches or something.
Yeah. Twinkies,
Peeps, and cockroaches.
And luckily cockroaches eat sugar, right? So they'd be happy.
Beautiful. So,
Sorry.
So your parents... So your parents were involved, like, civically.
Yeah,
how did this fitness thing play into that? Like,
so here's, even like before I had an awareness of this, we had Jack LaLanne going on in the background, but part of the reason that my grandma was so dedicated, and there was a stack of Good Housekeeping clippings next to her bed at all times with exercises that she could do, and she did them because her daughter, my mom's sister, so my aunt, who was born in 1936, was a forceps baby and had a traumatic delivery and developed cerebral palsy. And she was told at the time that she was born, the doctors didn't even want my grandma to hold her because they thought she wasn't going to make it. And then she did. And then they were like, well, you're not going to take her home. If she lives, she'll be institutionalized. And my grandma was like, that's ridiculous. She's eating, she's breathing, she's crying. Like, we're just going to take her home and see what happens. And that was the very Midwestern sort of like, you play the lot you're dealt and you have faith that things will be as they should be. And I think that when we start to talk about kind of positivity and that why do some people have things like that happen and shut down, and why do some people have things like that happen? And I think this is the more often what happens is you have something tragic, something difficult, something traumatic happen, and it activates you. And it moves you. It's that deer in the headlights. Do you fight or do you flight or do you freeze? And hardly ever do we freeze. Hardly ever, if it's something really, really big. And so I grew up with she was my favorite person. She literally, if there was one person on the planet that I think is literally in all aspects the best person on the planet, it was her. She, talk about saying thank you. Oh my gosh, if you talk to her for 5 seconds, you probably got a thank you card. She would go home, make it, and make her mother come and find you and deliver it. She was everybody's best friend. Everybody at all the restaurants in the small town in Idaho that she grew up in knew her. And so obviously now I'm talking about her future. She actually passed a year after my oldest was born. I think I'm not very good at math. So she was born in 1936 and she died in 2004. So she clearly made it a lot longer than anybody. But not only did she make it, she thrived. And the reason she thrived is she was born into a family where her mother's sister was an army nurse. And she had been in Australia building a field hospital, working with this doctor who had studied with Joseph Pilates, doing rehab. And this was something that this did not exist. Occupational therapy only exists because when we brought soldiers home from the war, we went, oh my God, we cannot afford these men to sit and live off the public dole. We have to get them back to work.
Interesting.
huge economic driver to take wellness practices from all over the world and figure out how we were going to get these men who were broken to be productive again. And
get these guys back to work. All right.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think I mean, and obviously when you think about money as a driver, like, you know, it's pretty amazing. And again, there's that we had this crisis. And so as a nation, we had to act.
Well, you know, on that play, actually, I was just listening to something the other day that said, you know, also when we as people, I think they were talking about, you know, grown men, but the point is, like, when we lose that maybe ability to work and maybe like what we self-identify with and how to improve or drive or move towards something, we lose a little bit, and even in our psyche, right? And it takes away from us. So just that like physical part of doing something is so healthy for us, you know?
Yeah. And you're right. There's a huge sense of loss, and we used to think it happened more to men, but now we realize just from a brain standpoint, men get more affected by it just because it happens more quickly. Women tend to have it kind of happen when they have kids or happen when they transition from school. Like, it happens in smaller steps, you know, but for a lot of men, you know, there's a huge testosterone drop that happens. And you're right. The key to mitigating that, because it's, you know, we don't want to squash it. It's natural, and it makes sense to have it happen to some degree, but you do have to mitigate the effects, and the way you do that is moving and breathing. Breathing is
no, that's amazing. So that side of the family then kind of brought that fitness, like health aspect.
Yeah, literally when my aunt, my mother's sister, the one that has cerebral palsy, was 3 years old. You know, she wasn't walking, talking, or, you know, or anything still at that point. And my grandma was having a conversation with her sister through letters. And when, of course, what's awesome is we have all these great letters that they wrote back and forth to each other. Jeez. And she started sending her exercises. Well, try this, you know, try this. And of course, there was all kinds of stuff around speech therapy for soldiers. At that time, they called it shell shocked, but it was, you know, post-traumatic stress disorder.
Oh, yeah.
So there was all the speech therapy stuff that they were able to do with her. So they got her walking, got her talking. And then when it was time for her to start school, the state, you know, at that time, there was no ADA Act. You know, they said, nope, she can't come to school here. Mm-hmm. And there was a school in Southern California that took people like her. And so they didn't know what to do. My mom was on the scene at that point. You know, they had a newborn, and they kind of thought their only option was to institutionalize her. They drove her down there. My grandpa took one set inside the door and said, nope, we're not doing this. I'm not leaving my little girl here. They stopped in Portland at the Veterans Hospital where my grandma's sister worked at that time. They stayed for 2 weeks. They learned all kinds of new exercises. They made a deal with my aunt that they would drive her, or my great aunt, that they would drive my aunt back and forth once a month from Twin Falls, Idaho to Portland, Oregon to train. And she walked and talked people's ears off right up until the day she died. You know, she thrived through a double knee replacement surgery. We convinced the doctors to do both at one time because we knew emotionally it was going to be really hard for her.
Sure.
And we talked them into it. We rocked the rehab. She was the most amazing, resilient person you ever met, and worked through pain and fear. So it is pretty hard. I say I'm super lucky to have had both her challenges to learn from and my own. You know, I like we were talking about earlier, the way I think the most resilient people who thrive the hardest are the ones that have had to deal with those kinds of challenges.
100%. So was that something then that she took and said, this is my mission? I mean, did she not, you know, bring this to the family? Was it like a fitness thing, or was it?
No,
you know what I mean?
It was just in the background. And it wasn't until after she passed and I started teaching aerobics when I was 16. Okay. My brother is a 7-degree black belt in Kung Fu. Yeah. It's always been, you know, like I said, I went to jazzercise with my mom when I was, you know, 6 years old. So it's always kind of just been something that we did as a family culture. Yeah. But then after she died, we were literally, my brother and I were in the hospital And my mom was out of town at the time, so we were, working ourselves up to kind of make the phone call and tell my mom that she had passed. And we both got up and started kind of going through this Tai Chi breathing that we both do. We just did it because that's how we manage stress.
Oh, wow.
And we had done that with my aunt kind of at the end too, just so she could stay present. And we just kind of looked at each other and we were like, oh my gosh, like if she could deal the lot that she was given in life with the body she was given, can you imagine if her body had been, what we think of as not broken, fully functional? Can you imagine, what her life would have been like? And you do feel sort of a sense of loss at that. And yet in that same conversation, we were like, well, it wouldn't have been as good. There in a lot of ways, it would not have been as good. And so I think he and I both in that moment made an unspoken commitment to the fact that we are clearly uniquely qualified to spread this mission, that Amy, you've heard me say this before. There is not one person on the planet for whom exercise is not possible and could not improve their life. Yeah. And people always throw Stephen Hawking at me, always. And of course, now that, right? I mean, seriously, people will literally get belligerent and be like, well, what would you give Stephen Hawking as an exercise? Well, you know what? How do you think he learned to do the things that he did? There's a ton of motion going on in his body. Mm-hmm. There was a ton of training his will to be able to just focus his mind in order to manipulate his world. Like that's exercise. So I still haven't found one person who could convince me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that.
That's really great.
And knowing you and not knowing your history, this is the first time I've ever heard, all that story. I think that really does talk a lot about how we are and how we are inspired as a part of how we grew up. And we can either use how we grew up and take it in a positive direction, or we can use how we grew up and make it as an excuse. There's nothing real terrible, they're like, not like you were beaten or any of this other stuff that you were going to make it as an excuse. But still, just the fact that you were able to take all of that and that shaped who you are today. It's such a beautiful, for me, it's beautiful to now know and understand why you are so passionate about being healthy and exercising and moving. I always just think for you, like, you always encourage people to just move. Like, I've seen videos of you and your mom at an airport gate, and they're like stretching.
Oh, that's great.
Everyone else is thinking, but it doesn't matter, Yeah. Now I understand where that comes from. And the understanding somebody makes you, feel that connection so much deeper. So thank you for sharing that. That was beautiful.
Of course.
You know what what I really love about it too is this part is you guys were present in that. It's not like somebody in your family came along and had this business or this avenue and you just jumped on it and said, yes, this is what we're going to do. You looked at your family members and then you kind of saw what was happening and then you're like, hey, this is an avenue. And then you guys kind of created that. And that was that being present and saying, let's look at what's around us. Let's use our environment and our tools and who we are as people. And then let's create from there, as opposed to like the opposite way. Like, how do I fit in? Where do I fit in? Or it was, given to you. And that's nothing to be said for jumping into like, quote unquote, the family business. I think that's amazing if you can do it and if you like it. So I love that you guys were present enough to think like, look at what we have here. Look at what we've learned. What can we give back? How can we share? How can we help? And I love that. That's awesome.
Well, and that, and again, I've been super lucky to have a lot of people in my life who are very conscious about how you take your passion and turn it into something you love. Both of my parents spoke publicly and did trainings for human resources, and my mom has trained internationally.
Sorry, I'm recording a podcast.
I thought we were going to get to hear from puppies there for a second. And so, like, I think that I have been lucky because I do think that my skill set kind of works really well together. I did at one point in my life think that I needed to shove myself into a personal trainer box. Like that's, I sort of trained as that and thought, okay, I get what this is. And it's because I was tired of being a starving actor. I thought here's a paycheck. And I knew at that point that I didn't want to continue in law school. And that just didn't work for me. It didn't work for me to be tied to a location. It didn't, I needed more. I needed a more comprehensive, and partly that, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. This is all amazing stuff. But what just stuck out to me is you said something very interesting. I want to know, because you just brought up law school. Give me, my wife just finished law school. It was amazing to come through all that. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
But so it's kind of personal to me, but I would love to know. So you're going to law school, you're about to go to law school. I would love to know the shift. So you're coming through there, and then how do you end up into maybe that journey from there to, the global wellness design tailored fitness? Like give us that little avenue, and just kind of how that shift happened, because I think a lot of people out there are trying to find, the people I talk to anyway, they're trying to find the balance between doing what you either have to do and doing what you want to do, and being able to provide for your family or yourself, both financially, spiritually, physically, whatever that may be. And it sounds like obviously you found that. So how did that shift happen, and like where are you guys at now? Like what's Tailored Fitness doing and stuff like that?
Okay. Well, so the law school thing, actually, my grandpa's a lawyer. He was the youngest DA ever to be elected in the state of Idaho when he was elected, and he was the oldest ever to retire when he retired. So he did that my whole life. And so that was kind of just always in my head. I was super active in high school. I played soccer. I was the varsity goalie until the end of my junior year, when I contracted Epstein-Barr virus and was flat on my back in bed for almost a year of my life, fully 6 months.
Wow.
I missed a year of school. I couldn't exercise, so that tanked. My depression was through the roof. I was a 17-year-old girl, so my hormones were already a mess. Oh, my parents are clearly saints who have lived with me through this. And so during that, I had sort of shifted to thinking I really like this physical thing. Like I knew I liked presenting. At that time, I thought I was going to be this huge motivational speaker, and then that all went away when I got sick. I didn't even have enough energy to finish a sentence, let alone think I was going to be this, rock star, Tony Robbins kind of speaker.
Sure.
And so I started thinking, okay, well, it's not going to kill you once we establish that it wasn't going to kill me. Because that's kind of what, that's what we thought. We were up against something a lot more scary than what it ended up being. I was working with a psychiatrist at the time who his whole job was to remind me that I was going to live. And so I needed to come up with my plan, whether it was for the next day or, whatever.
Okay.
And so we started talking about law school. And so then that stuck all the way through college. My degree is in theater and political science. And I think I just got on that track, right? We do that. We think you like high school, college, job, like what's next? You get in that, sort of, I just thought that's what I was supposed to do.
Yeah, that rhythm mode, yeah.
Right. I got engaged to somebody who I'm not currently married to because he asked me, and I thought, oh, that's like what you're supposed to do. And so as I was finishing school, I had the same psychiatrist who I continued to work with say, why law school? And I was like, well, because. And he said,
Yeah.
I'm not really sure I hear the passion in your answer. And so luckily, again, I was surrounded by a lot of opportunity. I was on track to go to Yale, and they were phenomenal and said, we will 100% defer your acceptance, go figure yourself out. So I moved to LA to try and be an actor, thinking all the time that I was going to go do this law school thing. I hated LA. Nothing personal against people that love it there. Yeah. I mean, it's just not my vibe. I do not have a competitive bone in my body. Just it doesn't exist. And I realized when I realized that about LA, I started thinking, if you feel this way about LA, how do you think you're going to feel about Yale Law School? Like, do you think it might be a little competitive there?
Right.
And so I started thinking, you know, what are my other skills? And that voice in the back of my head, you know, and again, I waited tables. I taught aerobics, which I loved. Like, I worked in a print shop. I did all of these other jobs because I kind of thought I was supposed to. Still going to go to law school, and then Ryan said, "Hey, come to Lions Club. They want to hear about like diet and exercise, and you know, blah blah blah." And I thought, cool, like I can do that. I love talking, and I'll go talk about presentation. It was literally an epiphany.
Yeah.
I did. I was one of those lucky people that had that moment where I thought, holy cow, there really is this. And at that time, I did not see the path through. Again, I thought people were just going to start hiring me to come and talk to them. Right. I taught a lot of step aerobics before the next person invited me. And it was actually somebody out of my step aerobics class that said, will you come and talk to my human resources department about how we're going to get our employees off their butts and to quit smoking? And so that's kind of how that happened. And again, I deferred my life. I paid like something like $9,000 in law school deferment, like just to keep it, because it was my safety line. Because again, like I said earlier, in my 20s, I just didn't trust myself, and so I'm going to keep this as a fallback. So,
dang. No.
That is so amazing. And like, yeah, first of all, I didn't know this either. We kind of have a little story a little bit that I also was engaged in college, and I don't know if you went through with the marriage. I didn't go through with my marriage.
I did not.
You did not, yeah. And so, you know, and again, you said something that I think is so powerful for a lot of people, which is that's what I thought I was supposed to do. Like, that's the next step, right? Like, you go to college, and then after that, you get married, and then after that, you know, you go to law school or whatever. Like, whatever that, like, we feel like in our lives, like, well, that's just what I'm supposed to do next, because it's what society tells us that we should do. And when really, when you say society and people get out of it, it actually means nothing. And really, the only thing that matters is your happiness. When you had that aha moment, when you were speaking, it was like this. So I love that. I love that story.
And I do, Joel. Like, one of the things that you were just talking about is, I was very lucky. I was at a place in my life where I was renting. I have a mortgage. I didn't have kids. I was married, but we didn't have kids. I was another full-time job I loved. But I was very lucky in that I had sort of a safety net within which to make the transition. And, you know, I am a passionate believer in the rule of law. I married an attorney. I work with elected officials. You know, I work a lot with human resources lawyers, figuring out the Affordable Care Act and EEOC compliance and that kind of stuff. Attorneys. So I still get to have that piece of my soul fed. It definitely informs the way I do my business. Especially because my husband's like, did they sign a waiver? Like, if you guys signed
did you get a contract for that? Yeah,
exactly. But it's harder. In fact, I don't.
Go ahead.
I was lucky. I was really lucky, kind of how that all fell together. And not a day goes by still where I don't, at some point in my day, think, God, I wish I just worked at Walmart, because I would know the check was coming, right? I would know, my husband would know, my family would know, like it would be, but I'm gonna actually use my husband as an example. And Amy, my husband does the same thing for the state of Colorado, or in the state of Colorado that Amy's dad does in the state of Nebraska. And so we kind of get that piece of each other also. It's a hugely stressful job. and Amy, I don't know if you're seeing this in your dad, but the climate of politics today has a direct impact on the fact, because their jobs are supposed to be bipartisan and impartial and embracing all counties regardless of party and blah, blah, blah. The level of partisanship that is going on right now makes my husband's job, I think, the most stressful job on the planet. And so do we think about his options? And do I feel guilt sometimes about the fact that my job feeds my soul the way that it does? And we just got back from, we do this DC trip where he's at one conference, I'm at another conference. I present at his, and then I go to mine. And mine is these 20-year-old personal trainers. For a lot of them, it's the first time they've been at a conference. They love their jobs. And they hang on every word you say. They do everything you tell them to do. And they love you. And it's just this love fest. And I go back across town to the Washington Hilton, where my husband's at his conference, and it is night and day. There's a lot of anger and distrust, and there are a lot of great people. There are a lot of fantastic people in the field of politics. But those are not the ones who are making the most noise right now. And so I fully understand that, like, we do have to pay the mortgage, so it's not easy. And if you listen to that voice in your stomach and you trust yourself, there are avenues. And I almost feel the way I do about exercise. I almost feel like if you're stuck in a box, it's because you just haven't figured out kind of where the edge, where can I lift that flap?
They left the job, but they really have no idea what they're going to do. And I said, but here's the thing. The way that you're living right now, like, that is no way to live. Obviously, being homeless, is no way to live either. But you are a better person than this, and you will figure this out because you are a smart person and you're a better person than what you are doing right now. And it's so true. It's so true. And sometimes you just have to believe that it's going to happen.
Yeah. And that's, I just have to share with you guys, because I know we're getting close on time, but Joel, one of the things that you kind of asked me to be thoughtful about is, like, what is positivity? Yeah. And I think this is the perfect lead into that, because positivity isn't like, everything is great, I'm going to take a leap and quit my job and everything is going to be fine. You have to, right? Like, that's insanity. That's not positivity. So I was chatting with my kids this morning. We have a bunch of extra kids at our house this morning to sleep over. And I asked them, like, what do you guys think positivity is? And it was so interesting because every single one of their first answers they gave to me in a negative, right? It means you're not sad. Yeah. It means you're not you're not being negative. And I was like, absolutely. That's 100% resonates. That's absolutely true. Can you give it to me in a, like, positive language way? And they were really thoughtful, really quiet, really thoughtful. And my little scientist kid, who's also a total smart aleck, said, oh, being positive means you have an electrical charge. And then started talking about, like, ions and, and at first I kind of giggled at him. And then I was like, well, wait a minute.
But he's right.
He's totally 100% right. And then as soon as we kind of laughed about that, they were like, yeah, those ions are happy. Those ions are free. One of the kids said, those ions are probably Green Bay fans, like they're Packer. Happy, my big one, said that he knows he's in a positive place, like his life is positive if he has the ability to eat an entire wheel of cheese at 2:00 in the morning, like, all the way up, and then they sort of started having this. It started in a very, like, light conversation, but it turned really serious. They started talking about being positive and having faith, how those two things play into each other and how that plays into their video gaming. And the big one of the oldest one, who's 15, who's not my kid, he's my kid's best friend, said, having a positive attitude, having faith, that's when you've been playing a game for hours and you get to the final boss and you play your best game and you die and you let your whole team down. And instead of throwing the controller, you take a deep breath, you hit restart, and you play again. And
that's so good.
I mean, like, seriously, like,
that's really great.
Blew my mind. And I think that like your person that you're talking about, Amy, who's in this place where like their job is killing them, you know, not it's causing them to not live their best life, but you do feel trapped. And I think if you can just take that mind, that like press reset button and go, okay, here's where I am. At a certain level, I do have to kind of start over. I think that's kind of how you can bring the positive, you know, mindset. It's that that Japanese pottery thing. You guys know the Japanese pottery thing where the pot shatters, it breaks, and instead of throwing it away, they put it back together with liquid gold. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Joel, you know what I'm talking about? It's called like, I can't remember what it's called, but it's beautiful. And it doesn't like hide the cracks. It really like highlights the cracks. It's the whole point of the art is that the beauty is in those broken pieces and in those cracks.
That's
and
so interesting. We had this little, I was at a conference the other day and somebody was talking about this, and they separated the groups. They said, okay, look at this glass, right? And the glass was half full. That's funny that I just said that. And they were like, this is the only measure we have to measure positivity or happiness. It's whether you see this glass as half full or half empty. This is our gauge. This is what we use, you know, as humans. And we all kind of chuckled. And then they said, line up from left to right. You know, on left is half empty, right is half full. And, you know, people lined up. And the people on the left are saying, it's like, yeah, I see the cracks in the glass, you know. It's not that I'm focusing on the cracks, but I want to like fix the cracks. And the other people are saying, well, I see the cracks in the glass, but I'm not focusing on that. I'm focusing on something else. So it was like we were all positive, but it was just how we saw things that were different.
Yeah.
But I love the reset. It's like reset and play again. The positive energy, having the charge, I think is really cool because it kind of ties into, you know, you would think that maybe those molecules and ions are moving, and your, you know, kind of basis from the beginning was let's just get moving, which I thought was really cool. You know, that's interesting how that plays together. When I talked to Jenny about this the other day, she thought something similar. She's like, well, we could talk about what it's not, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, but that's kind of the easy way, like, because it's kind of hard. I mean, you have to sit back, and that's why I wanted to give you that question ahead of time, because to come up with an answer on that on the fly is a little difficult.
Yeah.
You know, without it being just kind of off the top of the head and not a lot of heart to it. But no, that was a good, perfect lead in. I have one thing here that I want to ask you kind of before we go is what do you do like right now? Where can people, you know, find you? How can they engage with you? What would you like to see that way? You know, because I know you have a lot of stuff going on. I'm watching, you know, I see your videos. Obviously, you have a lot of fitness. You're speaking. So how can we engage with you and out there?
Well, so I am a huge fan of Facebook communication. My demographic is kind of that 65 years and up, you know, slightly younger, slightly older. That's like my target. Those are the people that I really want to reach, and they are on Facebook. And so I do a lot of training with people who look at 65 and think, how do I get there in a healthy way? So like the 35-year-olds that I work with, we are not working with how do I get a beach body? Although luckily, one of the side effects of eating well and exercise is a body that you're proud to take to the beach. Now, we can have a whole conversation about the way you get a bikini body being you go get a bikini and you put it on your body. That's pretty basic. But I fully understand the psyche that says, I want to feel good in my bikini. So the great thing is everybody that I work with, we work from a standpoint of you're gonna be 85. We're gonna assume you're gonna be 85. Let's make it our best 85 we possibly can. So Facebook, Tailored Fitness, there are a couple you will see very quickly which one is me, because you'll know that they're not me. I am not. All the other Tailored Fitnesses, when they come up, it is a swimsuit model. That is not what my profile looks like.
Well, and just look for the smiling face, because you are always smiling, and I love it. I love it. It's true. Or, you know, people can always email me if you want to have a conversation. It's Erika with a K, Erika,
at tailoredfitnessonline.com. And I love emails. I love questions. Pretty much about everything. I have a very whole person.
So it looks like.
And go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it looks like you have, you're doing some classes, you got some challenges going on.
Yeah,
I mean, you have a lot of really cool stuff out there.
We have a private Facebook group that I run. I have a closed group that is kind of just for anybody that wants to engage with me. I can't remember if I put you guys in that. Amy, I think you're in it, but Joel, I'll
the family one.
Yeah. Tailored Fitness Family. It's called Tailored, Taylored Fitness Family. And I'm real protective of that group. So I do ask a couple of questions and make sure that everybody's in there kind of has a positive, supportive outlook. But then, there's a paid challenge. I do about 6 a year, and spring training starts on Monday. We're so excited. I'm a huge baseball fan, and we are going to actually it's the first time I've done it, this press reset by this group called Original Strength. And the workout that goes along with the challenge is going to be this creating stability to foster mobility idea from Original Strength. And a lot of people hire me sort of to write them their own program, and I'm happy to do that too with anybody. So, and that's kind of my main, in addition to the speaking stuff. My sort of main gig is that, and then counseling. I'm doing this counseling people on, which I realized I do a lot of clean and good healthy power eating, and I wasn't doing that with my people. So. We're starting to do more of that.
No, I love that. I love that. And, we'll have all that stuff in the show notes, like where to find you, email, some of the stuff you talked about as far as your green drink and the book Press Reset you were talking about.
Yes,
and any other links and stuff. Yeah, I just see what you have out there. I really thought it was cool. And I love that you're engaging in your videos. A lot of times you never know what you're going to see, but sometimes there's just like one small takeaway, and I totally dig it. And
well, you inspired me to kind of do them a little bit more often, and because I love yours, Joel. Like that, I'm telling you, there are some mornings where I'm like, oh, that's right, I forgot I should be kind to myself, or like whatever.
We need more Joel in our lives.
Yeah, you guys.
The traffic lights. We need more Erikas in our lives too.
The yelling at traffic video, like that, got me at a time where I was like, yes, maybe take some deep breaths instead of screaming at other cars.
I know, it's the Chicago driver in me. It's hard to weed out, but it's a beautiful thing. Hey, no,
Erika,
I mean,
you said something. Sorry, I want to just kind of wrap it, but you said something in the beginning, or about kind of like your whole mantra, which is let's just start moving, or let's just keep moving, and that means so much from an exercise standpoint, but also you are an insanely positive, happy person. Truly. And I think that's why a lot of times, people they feel connected to you and they want to be in your world, because that's what happens. And I would say the same thing with happiness and positivity. Like, let's just start moving. Let's just start moving for ourselves. Let's start moving towards positivity so we can move towards happiness within our community. Let's just start moving towards more positivity. Let's start making a difference. And it's people like you in this world that help us to do that. So thank you for that.
Oh my gosh. Great. Thank you guys too. And you're exactly right, Amy. And that's what you and Joel are doing with Positive Life Company, is saying it doesn't have to be this massive action. Just start moving. Just little bits. Just start moving. Yeah.
I love
That's what you guys are saying.
Well said. Well said. Hey, thank you for everything, Erika. You're so fun. Keep it up. We're going to be following you. We'll have, like I say, all of the stuff on here, the way to contact and follow you. And hopefully we'll connect again soon. And
we will.
Really appreciate the time.
Yeah, you guys too. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
Thanks. Guys. Love you guys.
Okay, yeah, you guys too. Okay. All right. Bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
This